Too many cooks, too many damn egos. I'm John Rant with a retro review of AWA Superclash 1985 Night of Champions. Taking place at Chicago's Comiskey Park, announced attendance 25,000. It was actually around 20,300. Still pretty damn good, considering the AWA's popularity was dropping dramatically. And you have Vern Gagne's AWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, and World Class Championship Wrestling buddying up to try to fight Vince and say, hey, we can put on a big show. Look what we can do. We can bring all our champions onto this one big Super Clash. The sad thing is, this isn't the worst Super Clash event, but it might be the most disappointing because all three of these promotions still had a little bit of life left in them. I mean, Jim Crockett Promotions would rise up a little bit more until Vince McMahon decided to basically cut him down by fighting with the cable companies and, sabotaging his pay-per-views, but this was before that. World Class Championship Wrestling, unfortunately, was starting to decline a little bit too, and Vern Gagne he wouldn't admit that he was too damn stubborn and that he should have, done better at dealing with talents, because really that was a big part of the AWA's undoing, and Vince McMahon stealing the talents, but I digress. That's another story for another day. This show was a fucking mess and a half, though. And also, full disclosure, I found this on YouTube. I'm not going to mention the channel's name, but because I don't want them to get flagged, but if you just type in Superclash 1985, you will find it. And this is from the WWE 24/7 Classic On Demand service. And if you check out how the card is listed on Wikipedia and then check out how it is done here, the matches are kind of out of order, but in all honesty, maybe half the card is okay, and then the rest of it is just a bunch of dodgy finishes and just a bunch of bullshit and interference and a lot of really bad camera work, I want to say. Like, a lot of really bad camera work. There was like one good cameraman, and then everybody else, it was like, hey, they just hired people that were, I don't know, just like staying around the stadium, just like, oh, we can't wait to get in the show. Hey, you got a ticket. Hey, do you want to do the camera work? Yeah, you look good. Okay, I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing, but sure, I'll shoot this, because they would just suddenly cut away from the ring and shoot shots of the crowd, and sometimes they would shoot shots of the crowd, and people would be leaving in droves. And I don't think just to go to the concession stand. So anyway, we start off with Brad Reagan's versus Steve Regal. No, not that one. It's the AWA World Lightweight Championship. Larry Nelson was calling the action, by the way, and Larry Nelson, I'm sure, is a nice guy, and he wasn't a terrible wrestling commentator, but he was not particularly good on this night. He was the only one calling it. And I get that AWA was the main force behind this show, but they should have had other announcers, because good fucking God, Larry Nelson did not add a lot to this. He also did the pre- and post-match interviews, which were of varying quality. Everybody hates Larry Nelson should have been the theme of this show, because almost everybody was yelling at him afterwards. I mean, maybe they just got tired of the fact that he was just yelling so goddamn loud they could have heard him if they were in the next fucking county. And also, the ringside setup was a little bit weird, because they had almost like a live studio audience, like a sitcom audience, on all four sides, and then they had other chairs on the floor, and they had a bunch of ring mats that almost looked like pieces of cardboard leading to the ring because they came out of the dugout. And I get that they can't fill a goddamn stadium, but this just looked like it just was not a good look for the show. It was not a good look for any of the promotions. No promotion came out of this show looking really good. AWA came out looking even worse. At least Jim Crockett Promotions could go back and draw on the Carolinas and Virginias, and they could draw on Florida, and they could do some stuff like that. And AWA, what were they fucking doing at this point? They did Wrestle Rock, and then after that, any of the other Super Clash events. Super Clash 2, Electric Boogaloo, Super Clash 3, Dear Fucking God, and Super Clash 4, everybody get on the floor and do the dinosaur. It's just amazing that they were actually able to put those on. And Vern Gagne's greed was really fucking showing here, because he was like, oh, I'm putting on this show, so I'm going to feature all my guys, and we're going to do this. And Vern Gagne was a stubborn son of a bitch, and that stubbornness really fucking cost him. So yeah, this match, a lot of rest holds. A lot of fucking rest holds. Jimmy Garvin then causes a distraction. We get a roll-up with tights. The cameraman basically misses it, because I guess he, went out to lunch, and they handed it to a freaking cat at some point. And then, for 3, and Regal's all talking yeah, I won, all this, and then the women are interviewed, Sherry Martell and Candy Divine, which sounds like a name of a different type of wrestling, if you will. Nothing against the woman, but a bit of an odd name. And it's the AWA Women's Championship. By the way, we then cut to Reagan slamming Steve Regal, again, not that one, on the grass, because, they're in a freaking baseball stadium, so let's just do a bunch of grass bumps. And then they really overdid on all the grass bumps a lot later. So, Sherry was a great fucking heel, bumped her ass off for Candy Divine, who I'm not that familiar with, but apparently did have a pretty long career, and good for her. And this actually was given a good amount of time. I think he could have cut it by a minute, but that being said, at least the women were able to go out there and do some good shit. There was nice leg work, and then Candy Divine focused on the arm. But eventually, Sherry hit some kind of splash. It was supposed to be a knee drop, but I think she was too far out. 1, 2, 3, she's a new champion. And then she yells at Larry Nelson. Larry Yelson, if you will. I mean, that really should have just been his nickname here. But Sherry, great fucking heel. More remembered as a manager, but a pretty damn good worker. We then get Giant Baba, Tenryu, and Jumbo Tsuruta versus Harley Race, Bill and Scott Irwin. The Asian Six-Man Championships was actually a championship that existed. I did not know that. Unless it was like when Nick Goulas would just make up championships, or, you know, they would have the Night of Champions in the territory days and they would just make up some titles because there was no crossover on television. So you could just make up championships and the fans would believe it. So this was not good. It had some star power, but it was not very good. Baba at this point, I mean, and, you know, he did great in All Japan and brought All Japan up to big, you know, massive heights and wrestled pretty much until his unfortunate passing. But Harley Race was on a decline here. Bill and Scott Irwin were a good team. Tenryu was good, Tsuruta was good, but this just didn't fucking work. At one point, Larry Nelson says, Baba is loose and he's mad. Okay, that's an uncomfortable image. And a big boot pins Bill Irwin 1, 2, 3. And then everybody again yells at Larry Nelson. So, we get to Little Tokyo versus Little T, NWA World Midget Championship. Believe it or not, they had a midget championship. And they had some good midget wrestlers. This match, however, was a little short. I had to say it. I had to throw a little joke in there or whatever. I couldn't aim too high or whatever because it would have gone right over their heads. Everybody looks up. There's either a plane or a full moon. I did hear a plane a little bit, so maybe that was it. Like, oh, a plane. Look in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a plane. Planes are up in the sky. It'd be bad if planes were flying that goddamn low. Anyway, we get a double chop and Little Tokyo retains. Good. At least it was short. So, Mil Mascaras versus Buddy Roberts. This was joined in progress, by the way. And it was for the IWA World title. Mil Mascaras just no-selling everything. Big shock. And gets a crossbody 1, 2, 3. Mil then talks afterwards. I didn't really understand it. His command of English was fine. I just didn't really fucking care because I wasn't given a reason to really be invested in this match. Kerry Von Erich, back at the time when he had both feet on the ground, mentions how his brother Mike was in the hospital. This is unfortunately this was the surgery that got covered on the World Class documentary WWE did, and the Heroes of World Class Championship Wrestling, and the Von Erich episode Dark Side of the Ring, where Mike Von Erich, unfortunately, was never the same afterwards. Should have really never been in the ring. I think that's pretty obvious, but Kerry Von Erich, he was going to defend the World Class Championship Wrestling Texas Championship against gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with Precious. This was the match, and Garvin bumps off the turnbuckle and then gets pinned 1, 2, 3 in like 6.5 minutes. And then we get a brief brawl afterwards where Kerry's standing tall, and he got a lot of cheers from the crowd. I also realized just a lot of goddamn mullets, not just on the roster, but in the goddamn crowd. And not just from the men, but from the women too. A lot of mullets. Nothing against mullets, but only like 5% of people I know can pull that look off, and none of them were in the crowd. So anyway, Greg Gagne, Scott Hall, and Kurt Hennig. Speaking of hair, fucking hell, curly Kurt Hennig. That's hard to say, and Scott Hall with his perm. Greg Gagne was dressed like a discount, general stripper. I have no goddamn idea why he was dressed that way. And they took on Nick Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, and Larry Zbyszko. One of my viewers' favorite wrestlers. Hi, you know who you are. Jack Brickhouse does the introductions for this. He's a baseball announcer in the MLB Hall of Fame, and he took about 4,000 years to do this. The name rung a bell. Apparently, he is a famous baseball announcer, or was. I think he might have passed away. But I don't mind them bringing celebrities in, and it seemed like he actually wanted to be there. But you could have cut 5 minutes off of this by not having him do these introductions. This match happened. It wasn't bad. Greg Gagne has all 3 of them, and he's pounding on all 3 of them. Larry Nelson, boy, that Larry had a lot of Bob Caudle calls during this. Bob Caudle as I watched a lot of stuff, like late 80s, early 90s stuff that him and JR did for NWA, WCW, he had a lot of, slightly dirty lines that he said. Maybe that's just how my brain interpreted them. But power slam from Hall, pin Stevens, 1, 2, 3. At this point, Ray Stevens was near the end of his career and was just there to take pins. But Ray Stevens, he's in a class all by himself. Stevens and Bockwinkel, great fucking team. And then we get a post-match face promo where Hall talks, and it's weird to see Scott Hall before he became Razor Ramon, or even the Diamond Stud before he became Razor Ramon. And then the Freebirds are in the Rebel Flag face paint. So if you want to know what event that took place at, it's this one. Even though they talked about it on the Road Warriors documentary and other documentaries and showed that it was at Superclash. So anyway, Road Warriors with Ellering versus Freebirds with Buddy Roberts. AWA World Tag Title match. And I don't know why they just didn't let these guys go and fucking forget about tags, because it was a fucking street fight. Hayes kept wandering the field aimlessly. He was probably drunk or high or both, knowing Michael Hayes at this time. And then Gordy really was something special. He really fucking was. This is the brawl. Ellering and Roberts brawl outside. At one point, Roberts just brains him with a fucking chair. We get a loaded punch, and Gordy pins Animal 1, 2, 3. But then Vern comes out, sees a replay, and reverses the decision. And then asks the Road Warriors to put over Crusher and Bruiser. And the Road Warriors changed the finish, and that was basically it. And Vern Gagne got upset because he was losing control, because his stubbornness fucking cost him his wrestling promotion in the end. So, this match was fine for what it was. The Russians, Ivan Koloff, Nikita Koloff, and Crusher Khrushchev, the future Demolition Smash, aka Barry Darsow. Hole-in-one Barry Darsow. That was an actual fucking gimmick they gave him. And yes, he was Repo Man. But he was hole-in-one Barry Darsow. That was a fucking bogey, and oh fuck, that was a goddamn double bogey. That was a triple bogey. That was a fucking really bad gimmick. Anyway, so they took on Crusher, Dick the Bruiser. Yes, an actual name for a fucking wrestler. Dick the Bruiser. Dick the Bruiser. I can never get over that. How did they think that that wouldn't be turned dirty? Not that the guy wasn't legit tough, and not that Crusher wasn't legit tough, but Dick the Crusher Bruiser. I mean, man, ouch, that would really hurt. This is going off the rails. Baron Von Raschke, not the last time we'll see him. NWA Six-Man Championship match. Why bother with tags? Ivan bleeds. Big shock. I don't think Ivan Koloff, stopped bleeding after 1980 because he bled in a lot of his matches. This is a mess. You get a brawl outside, and Ivan ends up pinning Baron, despite the fact when the camera cut away, Baron had Ivan in the claw, but then the camera completely misses what happens. I think Crusher Khrushchev caused something. And 1, 2, 3, the Russians retain the NWA Six-Man Championships. And the crowd chants, bullshit. There. That's all I got to fucking say about that. Slaughter took on Boris Zukov, the AWA America's Championship. Slaughter cuts a promo before and is greeted by many people because Slaughter was really fucking over because he was G.I. Joe. And it's a good thing he never turned heel again after the oh fucking wait. He did. It was a great heel run, and it was also ill fucking advised how they did it. Now I'm talking WWE. They never turned him heel in the AWA. Shot of the crowd and people just leaving in droves. Maybe a few for the concessions, but they were like, you know what? We're fucking done with this shit. Lots of bumps outside. Slaughter just launching about 20 feet outside the ring. That was pretty damn cool. Remember the bump that Sid Vicious gave him at the 92 Rumble? Picture that, except you're going to the ground on in a baseball stadium. So we get another table bump, and then later a ref bump. Larry Nelson all scared about what's going on here because a couple tables that were by him kept getting bumped. He's like, I'll stay here as long as I can. No, Larry, really, at this point, I don't think you're needed on commentary. Loaded elbow pad from Boris, and Slaughter bleeds, much like Ivan Koloff, that is. Boris Zukov, I think he's most famous pretty much to WWE audiences for being the guy that took the pin from Bret Hart at Mania 6, I believe. It was like the 20-30 second match. And then DQ gets called. And Larry Nelson with the best line of the night, I don't know what's going on, because that's exactly what you want to hear from your lead and only announcer on a big super card like this. It's America's way, says Slaughter. It's America's way. We're coming to your town. We're gonna... I don't fucking know what the rest of that song goes like. It's America's way. So we have Kamala versus Sheik Adnan El Casey. Yes, General Adnan that would later be the manager and spokesperson for Sergeant Slaughter. He had a sword. And Kamala took on Jerry Blackwell in a $10,000 body slam challenge. This certainly existed. Jerry Blackwell later slammed Kamala to win the $10,000, but then Sheik Adnan El Casey, who had a sword, is just hitting him in the head with the sword. He's holding it like this and hitting him in the head with it, and I don't know why that amused me, but it fucking did. And then a bunch of people run in, and then Baron had a bat, so more like Baron von Ratschke, or Batsky. Fucking screwed that one up, moving on. He used the claw, he grabbed the bat, and he couldn't hit anybody with it. Man, Sting actually took inspiration because Baron von Raschke didn't do anything with the bat, and now Sting's not doing anything with the bat on AEW television. So then we get to what was the actual main event, Stan Hansen versus Rick Martell for the AWA title. They literally brawl. It's a double DQ because they keep hitting each other with chairs, and they battle to the dugout, and it's thrown out in 2.5 minutes. That's the main event for the AWA World title. And then at Night of Champions 2, Electric Boogaloo, you would have Stan Hansen beat Rick Martell. So that was at the very end of 1985. I retro-reviewed that. Check that out if you'd like. And then we get a Magnum promo. So much Mola power. My God, so much Mola power. And then Flair promo, the usual. He's going to show Magnum TA what happens when you face Ric Flair. Woo! And then they had a match for the NWA World title where Flair got the best out of everybody. Magnum was definitely improving and excelling at this point. And again, Ric Flair can make anybody look good. Flair bleeds at one point. Big shock there. And does eventually get a roll-up with the tights 1, 2, 3. And then Flair yells at Larry Nelson because everybody fucking hates Larry Nelson. Superclash 1985 was a fucking goddamn hot mess. And I would be very surprised if half the damn crowd was still there by the end of the show. Because this show was really, really fucking bad, and it has not aged well at all. I can imagine if you saw this in 1995, it wouldn't have aged all that well. Now, there's some good star power on this, and it's cool to see guys like Scott Hall, Kurt Hennig, and a few others, that would go on to do bigger and better things. It's cool to see where they started, and cool to see Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel team up, even if it was in a throwaway 6-man match. It's not really great to see Greg Gagne in the ring. It's not that Greg was bad, but it was clear nepotism. Greg had maybe a better mind for where wrestling was going, but, Vern thought, I can just make him like me. No, he had to be the first Greg Gagne, not the next Vern Gagne. Show was a fucking mess, though. And the backstory behind it of, how Vern kept a whole lot of money and screwed over the other promoters. Oh, wait, he did that with Superclash 3. Vern was a greedy son of a bitch, and it fucking cost him. Anyway, agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.